And so we are recording. And these are subjects that are relevant uh, to your design, how you choose your pictures, what you do in those pictures, and they connect to humans, they connect to psychology, how people think, how people handle information. Okay, and I'm going to ask some questions along the way. If you don't want to put your mic on, I'd really appreciate it if you can respond in the chat window, because I've got the chat window visible. I've got all your names visible, so I'll be able to see if a mic comes on and stuff like that. But there is this idea in psychology, and it is something I think that we see every day, is the notion that as human beings, we try to give everything a meaning, a sense, an order. So, you turn on the radio and your favorite song comes on, and it's like, oh, that must be good luck. Something good's going to happen to me, right? So you see 3 green cars, and you think, there you go. I got to buy a green car, or I got to not buy a green car. All sorts of things like that. So what happens is, even visually, our brains are working on trying to make sense of things. And one of those ways, I think it happens a lot to me, I'll be staring at something maybe on the side of a truck, or it may be a ways away, or it's something on the side of the road, and I've decided it looks like a face, or it looks like something, and then I get close and man, I was totally wrong. So we do that. And one of the ways I think of all the time in those terms is the stars in the sky, which many scientists would argue is it's random. It's where they are. It's where they are in space. Sorry, just a second. Rochelle's having a hard time getting online, so we've got too much load here. Okay, so all right, and when we look at the stars for centuries, literally thousands of years, the shapes of those stars have been seen to mean something. I know the stars I'm showing you here are primarily the Greek names of constellations. When I grew up, the Orion actually sat just outside my window. Orion, as you can sort of see, he's actually one of the more specific shapes. He's the archer, and I could see the Orion's belt, which is this cluster of stars. And even among scientific people, they talk about it. So you can kind of see it, but the point is, it's just stars, and we give them the name. Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, that's the bear. I prefer the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, because if you look there, you can sort of see the Dipper. It makes more visual sense. Cassiopeia is the heart of Cassiopeia, is this upside down, it's a W, okay, different things like that. And then this is where you find most of your astrological signs: Pisces, Aries, Lynx, no, just kidding, Cancer, Leo Minor, no. So those all come from people looking into the stars. So I don't think they really explain how our lives are going. But so one of the theories that has been created is called Gestalt, and Gestalt is a theory of perception that we look at things and we actually innately understand them or try to understand them, and it's not even really a conscious effort. Now, as I show this to you, I think what you'll see, and what I've seen over the years of teaching this here specifically, is that culture plays a role of this in this. So it's not completely without thought. It's not just, it doesn't just happen. So we have 4 precepts of Gestalt. Gestalt means whole. What the word means in German is form or whole. It's the Gestalt of something. It's looking in a big picture way. So the earliest theorists did argue that it just happens, and what you're going to see on this first one is it might not. Please tell me in chat, what do you see in that mass of dots and black and white spots? And can you tell me what's in the picture? Wow. Really, I'm impressed. Anybody else? Leopard, grass. Okay, good. Tree. Okay, yeah, the tree in the upper left corner. Okay, deer. Okay, so if you read on the left, it says the dog is not recognized at first. Western people will always see the dog. Okay, you guys don't always. That's why I was like, wow, Amal saw the dog, or she read it on the left. That's fair. Okay.
Yeah, this is the first thing I saw. I recognized the dog. His face is down
Walking
on.
away from us, right? Right there.
Yeah, his face is. I recognized his face as at first.
Okay. So, and that's, I would even give it more details. It's a Dalmatian. You're right. I think it's going toward the tree. I see this looks like a tree with leaves on the ground. Looks like lots of leaves on the ground. I think it could be reasonable to call it a deer. We see the tree. It could be a leopard, because leopards also operate on spots. I would say culturally, the West is more dog oriented, and the dogs that are here are more limited in sort of all the different varieties. But the bottom line of Gestalt is the dog doesn't exist. It's just a mess of dots. And it is our perception that gives it a form. But we do look at something and we want to say, what's that an image of? And even in something as simple as this. Okay, so a second part is the idea of reification. So everybody sees the triangle, right? Okay, yeah, you see the triangle? The triangle's not there. The only thing that's been drawn are the circles, the little Pac-Mans. But our brains, because those lines connect each other, and when we talk about the laws of Gestalt, we see that triangle, even though it's not actually drawn. So that's really a kind of cool thing. I mean, if you can really adjust your brain, and if you're into video games, you might see 3 black Pac-Mans, but ultimately we see that triangle. And here's some other examples. Who does this look like? What do you guys think this looks like? Snake? Snack. Jawahar, what do you mean by a snack? Or did you mean snake? Sorry, you meant snake. Okay, sorry. Okay, you guys ever heard of Nessie? The Loch Ness Monster? Do you see it? The Loch in Scotland means a lake, but Loch Ness, and people say that there's this like sea, what do you call it? A sea serpent, whatever, a giant sea monster, etc. And basically, in the photograph, what you see is exactly what you see here. Okay, because our brain fills in the other pieces. And when I do that, you don't even really see the water anymore. If I take it away, it's like you can see the water around it, and so it's hidden underneath. So the pictures of the Loch Ness Monster could very much be something like this, that it's just a shadow or whatever, but people want to explain, ooh, what does that mean? That looks like something to me. So that's reification. Okay, so this is the worm or the snake around the pole. The pole doesn't exist. Okay, this is the spiky ball, right? Okay. So the ball is not drawn, but just the nature of those gives it a three-dimensional look. Okay. This is a logo from Hong Kong. It's actually a light and power company, which you might be seeing. But the part of reification on this is these curved lines right here and right here give the sense of 3 dimensions. So it's just a line, it's 2D, and then these other circles reinforce it. Part of the reason, and there's even the circle here, the way the shadow plays out. I love this logo because it's one of the only logos ever created that's in Chinese and English at the same time. So you have CLP, China Light and Power, and this symbol taken as a whole is actually the Chinese character for middle or China, the Middle Kingdom. But okay, that's my geek. This is a top 5 for me as far as logos because I love those attributes. I like simple Gestalt kinds of design. So everybody see it? Yeah? Anyone? Yeah. What kind of cola, Nora? Can't just be cola. There you go. Absolutely. It's Coca-Cola. Now, this is Gestalt plus other things because clearly we associate Coca-Cola with the red. That's totally connected. We associate Coca-Cola with that specific shape of bottle. And in fact, both those things are trademarked. But what's happening is the bottle's not there, but we finish it in our brains. Our brains finish it. And then this is a peacock. Do you see the peacock? Okay, this is one you're less familiar with. Okay, and essentially it's a television network in the USA called NBC. They were the first television network to broadcast in color back in the 1950s. I think it was the late 50s, may have been early 60s. But the logo used to be literally it looked like a reality drawn peacock. But they reduced it here and they used Gestalt principles, and then they just purposefully cut that little notch, and then the way they aligned these teardrops for the feathers all made it come out. So that's reification. Okay, what do you see? Vase or faces? Let me get a few answers. 2 faces. Yep.
I see vase.
Okay. All right. Shama sees both. Okay. Vase, and the face. Okay. And what this is called, all right, see both? It just depends on which one you lock into first. They are both apparently here. Okay. And this is the idea that our brains can switch between possibilities. So I've got a number of these for you. Has anybody been to the Dubai Museum of Illusions, I think is what it's called, the Illusion Museum? No? Okay. Okay, so Salama's, okay. A lot of the illusions you'll see in a place like this, you saw what exactly. I follow them on Instagram. I haven't been there, but like the Hollywood Wax Museum, I don't know, Guinness, somebody like that, and they have a place in Hong Kong. And a lot of the illusions are actually these multi-stability optical illusion tricks. So, okay. So this one, 3D box or a bunch of, or a square surrounded by some triangles and stuff like that. And then it's even the question of which way the box is open. Okay. So this one, actually, you kind of stare at it. There it is. If I stare at these intersections, and if I stare at this intersection, my brain will change the way, these are the two most important points. It'll change the direction that the box is open. Okay, I don't want to do that too much. Okay, duck or bunny? This, okay, wow, okay, duck first, Aisha, nice. Okay, all right, everybody's seeing duck? Nobody's seeing bunny? So you change the duck's bill into short bunny ears, okay? And then you change the duck's tail to its big foot. So this is like the rabbit's big leg. What's going on? Okay, yeah. And you get duck and bunny. Usually this one actually has a bit of a rotation to it. Bunny, nice. Oh, yeah, okay, so multi-stability, you're moving between multiple things. Okay, everybody see the woman? Or do you see a dude playing the saxophone? Okay, somebody in the other class asked if it was maybe Marilyn Monroe, and I can actually see that in the face, but you switch between the two and you can go back and forth. This is the classic old woman or young woman. Okay, so what this is telling us is it does matter very much. So she's got the feather hat, and then the old woman is looking down this way. Okay, and there's her mouth. And then this mouth for the young woman becomes a choker. There's her eyelash and her ear. So the eyelash is shared by both. And then she's looking in this direction. Okay, so this is the most classic one that you see the most often. Okay, so there's that one again. It has multi-stability, and it's more thoughtful of whether you're looking at it in English or whether you're looking at it in Chinese, and that is very cultural. So this is not all very simple in your brain. This is from Northwest Airlines. Can you guys see the NW? Yeah, so we got, which do you see first, N or W? W, okay. And then N, okay. Some different reactions. So I love this logo because it's for an airline, Northwest Airlines, that used to be Northwest Orient, and actually they don't use this logo anymore, which bothers me, but there's the N, whoops, I'm not on it, now I'm on it. Okay, so there's, oh, you just can't see it. So you see the N and then you connect them together, that's W. So that is very much multi-stability, but is anyone thinking to themselves, why is the NW in that position in the circle? Okay. There is a reason for this design, and I'm very happy to tell you I've met the guy who designed it. So I've had the whole discussion. What about this arrow? Okay, separate it from the end. Just look at the arrow in the circle. Okay, which sorry, don't let me talk. I'm here now. Okay, gosh, that was silly. Okay, sorry. So this is Northwest. Okay, so that's,
Sir,
yeah. Hello?
I was in the group waiting to tell us that class has started. I waited like for 15 minutes. No one have talked. I thought it still didn't started and you were in the meeting. So, and then I talked in the group. They said that class has started. I didn't know. And you took the attendance. I was waiting.
Okay, can we,
I actually came to the class earlier than expected, but you weren't in class. Like, it
okay,
didn't start.
okay, all right. So I'll look at that later. Okay, so this is pointing northwest. Okay, and all right, so I'll move on from here. All right, so the next thing on the basic precepts is the idea of invariance, is that once we associate a shape, once we understand there's a shape, this basic shape, even if it's a bit of a nonsense shape, we can do lots of variations to it and changes, and we still understand that it's connected to this, that somehow these parts make that object. So that's why we can do really weird things with letters in the alphabet, with letters in either Arabic or English alphabet. You guys actually know about this because it is phenomenal what you can read in Arabic, because you see the letters and you understand that even if they're shaped or elongated or put into a circle, you guys don't have any trouble reading them. I've done a thing with Abu Dhabi, and I did it in Kufic style, very squared. I've shown it to students, and students have said, "Oh, that says Abu Dhabi," and it's like, wow, because I did a fair number of manipulations to it. So we do, if there's something recognizable, we do hold on to it, so we can actually, that gives us some creative latitude. But then if we look at the laws essentially of Gestalt, we look for the simplest shape. So in essence, it's sort of like two triangles looking down that way is the simplest shape. The complex shape is a triangle and a square, but it's really not what we see. If we look at similarity, we group things together that are similar. So we group black with black, and we group white with white, and that's how we see things and we connect them. So similarity plays a role. These are the laws that actually underscore the precepts, underscore how those things work. Proximity, things that are closer together, we perceive in a group, like all here, but once we give a separation, without drawing a line, we've drawn a line and it becomes three groups. Okay, now what I want to show you here, and this used to be in a different form, but whoa. Okay. Oh gosh. All right, sorry. Is that when I zoom into this, you can see it starts to get pixelated, but in fact, it is totally pixelated. Whenever we see, this is exactly what pictures look like in Photoshop. When we look at an image like this, we are seeing the dots. Our brains make it into a picture. Our brains tell us the color. Because of the proximity of these different pixels to one another, of these different little squares, we see, then the picture happens. So it, in essence, doesn't exist. It's our brain telling us it exists. So that's a collection. These are all actually collections of dots. That is also, proximity is also how video works. Now, I used to have a video in here, but I don't have it right now, but I'll just show you. Okay, but you get a sense of motion there. If I had more, you could see it a bit more. But each one of those is in fact just a still picture. And if they are close enough together, literally 15 frames a second, or it kind of continuity and motion breakdown, you can probably get away with 10 frames a second, but when it goes any slower than that, then you see flashes and you see individual pictures, where when it speeds up, when there's more frames, you just see motion. And that is about those frames being next to one another. So this is a collection of dots that we see as a picture, that then when we put them together with each other, we see motion. So your brain is working overtime. Your brain is working overtime and connecting these things together. So Gestalt does explain some things to us. The next one is symmetry. When the two objects are similar, we connect them together. So then I always think of this as the bedpost or something, a leg. But when they're not symmetrical, it is harder to connect them together and see a shape between them. It's just kind of a mess, and our brain does not relax and see that. Okay, this is the idea of continuity. We follow the path of least resistance visually, and we go along the line. So either we go up or down this line, okay, we don't turn the corner, or we come down this line. Okay, then closure. Closure is really very important. We see a circle, we see a rectangle. It's not really drawn, but our brain closes it off. This is a demonstration I'll show elsewhere. If we see Escher's face here, we don't imagine that he's a mask. We actually can see, we think, okay, this is a reflection, and we can see the rest of his head and that he has a body and all those things, because our brain finishes the picture. And that's really important. That means in your poster, in your designs, you can cut things off. If you cut them off in the right place, you can cut things off and people will still see beyond the edge of the frame. And that's pretty cool. There it is. Okay. So this is another demonstration I'll have to do in another environment because it won't work here. All right. So there, the Coca-Cola, we're closing that. The bubbles are in the basic shape, but it's not outlined. We see the outline, we see the bottle. Then finally, the notion of common fate is things that move together. We see, example in nature, are zebras. What? Zebras. Okay. Part of their survival is doing this exact thing here. When the two of them connect together and you're not sure where one starts and the other ends, and when it's an entire pack, then predators are less likely to attack them. And when they move, they're like a giant creature. They have a common fate and they move together. And that animal says, yikes, I don't want to mess with that giant. That's bigger than an elephant. But then what happens is, if one animal breaks away, then that is not following the common fate, and the predator will then chase that animal, regardless of its size, because it's much smaller than this group of animals together. So that's common fate. Those are the essentials of Gestalt. Any questions?
Nothing so far, sir.
Huh? Okay. Okay. So now I want to look at image composition, and we're gonna press forward on image composition. And this takes in some of those concepts, but this is going to help you. I know some of you have been struggling a little bit with your decisions for your pictures. Okay, so principles of image composition, I think, will help you, tell you what kind of images are stronger. And so we're going to bust through it. So I had mentioned to you before, or to the other class, the idea of the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. Okay, here Z is shown as a diagonal, but Z is also in and out of frame. So it can be thought of as a diagonal in a 2D environment, but it's also, when you're creating a sense of 3D, is depth into the frame. So looking at an example, okay, this is extremely horizontal, okay? So it actually gives a sense of conservation, of conservatism, of stability, of sort of longevity. I mean, when you think of a culture that's more than 2,000 years old, then you think of China, and most of their architecture is very horizontal. It's stable, immovable, won't change, will last, longer, will last another 10,000 years or whatever they might say. So that's horizontal. Any image that's horizontal, okay, is going to be fairly stable, mildly boring. It's less exciting. It's not as dramatic. There is a bit of depth here with this opening, but this is boom. It is what it is. There's not a lot beyond it. And when it's dominant this way, it's not moving. So this is x-axis. If we go to y-axis, that's vertical. So that is like the New York skyline. You have verticality. The Chrysler Building for 1 year was the tallest building in the world in 1930. This picture was shot from the Empire State Building, which replaced it in 1931, and was the world's tallest building for a long, long time. But when things are vertical, like a tall building, like even this one, okay, that's straight, then they have the potential to move. They have the potential to have motion. It's more dynamic. When you think about a picture, a photograph that is vertical, so a vertical poster, okay, where the side is longer, the height is longer than the width, it is naturally vertical. It handles vertical things. It is a little more exciting by its very nature. A horizontal poster is really where the width is longer than the height, is then, okay, is like a landscape, and it's going to be much more sort of immovable and those sorts of things, and it can become a bit more challenging for that image to become exciting. Now, obviously, I've used buildings, and this is a Frank Gehry design. Then diagonals in a building are become much more exciting and have much more possibility, because they kind of look like they're falling. They look like they're moving. How does it stay up? The Capitol Gateway is a perfect example, because it looks like it's falling over, but it's not. It looks kind of like a tornado to me. But that is the diagonal, and that is a much more exciting composition. Now, the example I want to give you for these three things, actually, let me go back here where we're looking at all three, is think in terms of a baby. Do we have any moms? I'm just curious. Any moms? Say you're a mom. Come on, be proud. Anybody an oldest sister? Is anybody still here?
I'm an older sister.
Okay. How young are the younger ones?
I have a sister that's 2 years younger than me.
Okay.
Other than that, I have like 8 young siblings that are 4, 5, 6, and
Okay, so you saw them as babies.
yeah, I'm seeing them as babies.
Yeah. No, but I mean in the Western sense of babies, little tiny babies. Okay? Because when we think of a baby after it's first born, it lays, right? It doesn't move. It lays on the ground, nice and flat, or in a bed, nice and flat. It's not really going anywhere. It's very safe. We feel comfortable. It's not going to get in trouble, all sorts of things like that. So that is really the x-axis. It's very calm. We actually try to get babies to move. We want to teach them to crawl and get them to sort of become active. But then when the baby moves to the y-axis and they start pulling up on things, immediately as a parent or an older sibling, okay, we start to get a little more nervous because now the baby could fall over. Now the baby could, get into some trouble and also, slobber on tabletops. But once that baby moves from the horizontal to the vertical, becomes dynamic. And then where the diagonal comes in, where the z-axis comes in, is if you've watched a baby learn to walk, what it really amounts to, and the skill they're trying to master, is that when they sort of fall forward, they put their leg forward and catch themselves. And when they fall forward, then they bring their other leg forward and catch themselves. And that's like the whole thing. When you think about, you're sitting there waiting for the baby to come walking towards you. Your hands are out because you're afraid they're going to fall. Because in essence, walking is controlled falling over and over again. So as the baby moves, and if you think of like runners, say Usain Bolt and people like that, when you think of them running, really, a lot of times it's a diagonal. What they're doing is falling forward and they're moving as a diagonal. So if we think of the baby, calm, peaceful, pulling up, not yet moving a lot, but has the potential to move, and then the diagonal means they're going to start moving. When they first start doing it, they fall a lot and it makes us nervous and things like that. But once they start catching, then it's a much more dynamic thing. Okay, so X, Y, Z. Okay, this is looking at the ways we read images and what you can do. These obviously come from comic strips. Okay, there's two theories on this. The one theory is that we essentially start here when we view something. So by that nature, this image is actually classic, and that we do, gosh, what do you call it? It's like a cinnamon donut or something. But we come around backwards to the left. So in this case, we'd sort of start in the room, and then we'd see Lily and the question mark. We'd come around visually, we'd see mom. As we come here, we see a bed that hasn't been slept in, and then a stuffed bear, and then an open window. And then as we're looking at the frame, then we start to notice that it's a child's room. There's the alphabet up around the top. We start to see the whole context. Maybe then we see a bit more of a worried mother's face. For some reason, there's a gumball machine on the left-hand side over here. Okay? But our first instance is to view the image that way. And what this actually does is drive us to the next. So here, once again, here it comes. So we would start with the speech bubble. We'd start to come around. But the thing that happens here is the human eye and that guy's arm very much push us to look that way. Because the human eye, if it's looking right at us, or if it's looking at something off frame, we want to know what it's looking at. Because that's just a human thing. Even if it's animals, the eyes are the most powerful compositional element, if you have that in there. So if it's perceived as a face, if it's known as a face, I don't know if it was this class or the other one with the German museum that has the big face on it. Faces are powerful. I think that's why that picture is more compelling to me, because it humanizes it. We connect with it and those sorts of things. But it's like the speech, then we follow the path of the eyes. So we don't know. I mean, it looks like maybe it's an asteroid or it's a big, meteor storm or whatever. But we're interested in what's coming. So the next frame would show us what's coming. We can start here as well, where we start in that same spot, the guy's ear, and really we would pass around to this speech bubble. Oh, Speedy, where have you been? Everybody's been going crazy, blah, blah, blah. Then we move in with her hug, and then we come around again, and we'd see his response. Much simpler image, and self-contained, but we would stay there. Whereas this one is definitely, even if we started here, we basically go and head off to the side, because everything says everything's moving this way. These lines make it look fast. The geese the geese are flying in that direction. She's going in that direction. And sort of these lines make it look like she's going fast. So that's one way of thinking about it. Another way of thinking about it is reading direction. Now, I would say that as an English speaking person, I would read images from the left to the right, just like this, okay? So that's the way that reads in terms of the words, but it's also the way I read the picture. I come in from the left side, and then I make my way across, okay? And depending then what other factors move me around, that's what happens. Now, when I lived in China, a lot of times I would ask, but which way does Chinese go? And they'd say, oh no, it reads the same way as English, in a flat line, like a title. But it doesn't always. In fact, this line is read right to left, the same way you read Arabic. So my contention is that as Arabic speaking people, the dominant entry point into an image is from the right side, and then you come into the image and decide what's the most important thing for me to see. Now, the only reason I know this is because I know these two characters are Sa-Tin, okay? Sa-Tin, which means muddy field, okay? That's a pretty cool one because it looks like a field. And I know this one down on the end because I always called it the happy house, and that's a committee or a grouping or something like that. So it is related to those kind of subjects, depending how it's modified by that character, never mind. But there we have those two opposite directions. So you and Chinese people could potentially read the image a different way than I do, that it's culturally different. So when I see something strong, so even as you compose your posters and things like that, I have to be thinking about the fact that you are reading it in a different way. So you might put stronger elements in a different part of the frame. And so you can use that on me if I give you a critique and you say, no, but sir, I see it this way. So that would be like an educated argument with me. But the thing is also, in this one picture, Chinese at least, is also read vertically. Okay, so this is actually the way this is read. Okay, and in fact, not specifically that way. Okay, it's read like this. It's
I
read.
have a question.
Yeah.
What will this help us with in our poster?
In terms of where you put things to read and where you put different objects.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it'll help you with every image.
Sir, so now you're basically just showing us examples.
Huh?
So now you're just showing us examples of what things we can do in our poster,
Yeah.
or what?
Yeah, I'm showing you principles of design. Yeah, things that will.
Okay.
And I'm probably going a little fast, but it'll be a tape, and I'll put it on. Okay.
No, it's fine, because I was a bit mixed up. I didn't know why you're showing us all this.
Okay. Yeah, these are principles behind what you're creating. These will be principles behind everything you create for this class about being creative. So then here, even this reads that way. this reads that way, this reads that way. So a Chinese person might start there, they might start there, and in fact, this one reads that way. So, all right, I know you're not making things for Chinese people, but it's just that my theory is depending on how we read a language, depending how we read words, we also read pictures the same way. So that is what I'm trying to get at. Okay, whoops. So this is very important, even though it's horizontal. But what you want to do when you look at your frame and you decide the strength of an image is you want to divide it into thirds. Now, because this is horizontal, it works this way, but you can divide an image vertically or horizontally into thirds. And the places to position the most important information or the reasons I've said a lot of things that I've said to you about where's the horizon line, where's the most important object, okay? The center is important, but the center should not dictate everything, because when something is in the center, it becomes stable, it becomes very horizontal. There's not a lot of sort of visual action. The eye comes to the middle and it sits there looking at that circle and that X. No, okay, Jawahar, it's, the center can be the focus, and it really should, I would say it shouldn't be, because the most dynamic pictures have important elements at one or more of the intersection lines of the thirds. And I'm going to show you examples on like that, showing you some human eyes and things like that. But those are the most important places because it offsets it a little bit and it creates more sort of visual dynamism. Okay, so an example would be it. So those are strong places. If your most important part was down here at that point, that's great. If it was up here, great, great, great. But what makes a picture even more interesting, and when I say to you, it has a strong diagonal, there might be something really important up here, and then there might be something really important here. So the visual, those are strong places, but then the visual connection will be this diagonal. So it will have a diagonal without even having a line in it. So let's look at some examples of operating with the thirds. Okay, so, all right. So this is a picture where there's a mistake. It's strong on the thirds, but in actuality, this would be a better picture if the front part was out of focus and the back part was in focus. Now, even here, the interest in the back part is, I think he designed it that way, but you don't know that for sure. It has facial qualities. So we look at it. So that would be better in focus. Okay, but what makes it strong compositionally is the fact that that face is right on this third. This stuff floats away there, but the strongest sort of part of this image is along the vertical third right there. Because you can, if you stare at it now, even with it out of focus, you cannot help but look back here at this. You could fight and try to look back here in the picture, but your eye gets drawn back there. And that's its position in the frame and its facial attributes. This also gets used in relation to horizon lines. This picture actually has two horizons, and that is where the sea meets the land and where the land meets the sky. So even though it's hazy and foggy, but what you see is both of those lines, it's very close to that third line, and those horizons are on those lines. The only time you should really use a center horizon, okay, this is a horizon on the thirds, is if you have a reflection. If you have a reflection top and bottom, then the horizon line in the middle is potentially okay. But I wouldn't even put that object directly in the middle. I would move it if there was a single object that was important here, I would put it over here. Or I would put it over here. And then you would have the reflection, and then you would have part of the picture to sort of relax and come back. But even this picture, what you can see is that the horizon is right here across this third. Okay, so it goes right across there. Okay. Even here, a fairly, I would say, fairly boring photograph, but I put it in here for a reason. But it does kind of split the ground from the water in the pond, and then the back of the park with the sky. But even if we look here without it, what happens is, because this horizon is near the upper third, we know that the most important part of this image is down here, is the park itself. So it gets divided, and that tells us where the important part is. So it's not exactly on that line, but it's close to that line. Okay, so looking at people, the thirds also operate. The first thing is head. Okay, Nathan's having trouble staying in, okay? And yes, that apparently looks like me, and that is my dad, so I look like him. So his eyes, so he's looking straight at us. And if you put his eyes on this upper third line, even if the picture was farther away, even if the picture was closer up, if his eyes are on that third line, that is definitely a stronger image. And this shows that really, since he's looking right into the camera, it is hard to look away. This picture is also strong because he is in focus and the background is out of focus, so it's limited depth of field, but that makes him pop out more. I haven't really done any tricks to this at all, but okay. And he turned 92 this year. Okay, so, all right. Now this is one with Cecilia, and this is where her face is centered. And to me, this picture is awkward. It is so centered. And as you can see, her eyes are not on that line. It's below it, and it's not as nice a picture. This would be a better picture with her eyes on this line. And then that would alter the view of the background and the playground and all that other stuff. But this is an interesting, it makes the picture a little more weird and odd. She was actually only 4 years old at the time, and somehow she looks older than that. Okay, so even here we have eyes. Those eyes sort of draw us back and forth. And with the third line, I've sort of split the difference between those eyes. And so that's the attraction. Now, this is one where this is a picture, and this is about nose room. Okay, so this is nose room. His headroom is great because actually his eye there is on that upper third line. The light on the smoke is fantastic. It looks really great. But because he's looking straight in this direction, so this is how he's looking. Okay, that would be stronger if his eyes were on this line. Because what happens is this whole area in this third is really kind of pointless. If the picture was framed more in this area, or even if we just made it square, it would be a better picture, because that would give him what is called nose room, room to look into. Because there's really cool things going on in this photograph, but there's this huge wasted space here behind. Okay, there's nothing going on there. So in this picture with Andres, you can see that he's not looking straight across, but he is looking across the frame, not directly at us. So being next to this line makes for a stronger image. Okay, so so in this sense as well, you can see it's going the other way. his eyes are along there. Actually, they're very close to the vertical third as well. Okay, and so this picture is really nicely balanced, even though there's no motion in the water, which looks weird. If you water ski, that is perfect water skiing water. Okay, but that shows with the third, but here he has nose room going into that space. In terms of lead room is something farther away that's moving. This photograph, I don't hate it. I actually like it quite a bit, but it would be better if the horse was back here in the frame. Okay, because then it would have space in the frame, it would have lead room it could move into. We go to this photograph, and because it's more of an angle, then this horse is not badly placed. So he's running just toward us, side off the camera, and the space is there correctly. This one's a little more confusing because the horse is looking right at us, but Cecilia is looking into the turn. And so, okay, so those create sort of difference. So it's probably about the right place. And in this case, this is Merlin. Merlin's eyes are looking pretty much straight into us. And that's where sort of the human eyes are competing with the horse's eyes. So I'm pretty sure that's how I framed it when I saw it. But this throws it a little off balance. But her eyes are very nicely on the upper third. So that part of it is strong. Now, another thing that's in operation in a picture are things called vectors, okay? And these vectors give us a sense of how to look, where we should be looking to. And so we'll look at graphic vectors first. So these two roads coming together create graphic vectors. So that is giving a structure to the image, and we sort of, our eyes will move along those straight lines. There's one picture, once again, I don't know if it's your guys, that has archways at Kasser Hosen, and actually that has very strong graphic vectors that draw us into the image. Okay, so this one has those strong vectors. Probably from a third's perspective, this intersection would be better farther over here. Okay, so here it's a tunnel, and the graphic vectors draw us in, or they bring us out, because it doesn't totally give us direction in that way. Okay, also don't take photographs while you're driving. All right, let me just give that safety moment. Okay, here's a whole bunch of graphic vectors, which creates a bit of a muddle in the photograph. This horizon line is very accurate to the third, but these are the main lines that exist. So that there's a fence line, there's a road providing us a way into the image. And then there's the line at the wattle trees and the oaks, and then up at the top of the hill to the sky. And see, this is one of those pictures. The road is so centered, it bothers me. This would be a much better picture without that road in the center, because it's not giving me a sense of direction or things like that. I should take that picture again if I ever get the chance. Okay, now those were graphic vectors. These are called index vectors. And what index vectors are, if there's arrows in a picture, if there are eye lines in a picture, eye line in a picture, and here even fingers, things pointing and telling us exactly where we should be looking. Okay, so Cecilia's looking down, Rochelle's looking down, the fingers there. So we end up right there, which is what they're looking at. So we're interested in what they're looking at. So those are driving us, if that's the important part of the image. There is a lot of wasted space in this picture. Same thing here. His eyes, the pool cue definitely telling us a direction. Probably be better if the picture was panned left so that there was more lead room for the balls to travel in. So we do know exactly where to look, but the balls on the table have no direction to go in. So it's not a bad picture, and he's nicely on the thirds and some of those things, but there's other factors, there's other motion going on inside. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is an index vector, the man. So even if you look at this red color and the detail draws us to here first, his hand says, then go this way, we go this way, our eyes drop. And this, the green, this is a motion vector that draws us back into town. We come back. And actually, when you view it this, your eyes don't really stop. They are in motion following those vectors. And those are the most dynamic kinds of pictures. Okay, so there it is. And obviously a motion vector, even without a blur. So it's telling us to go across here. Now, this would potentially be better with more lead room for the horse, but the fact that it's the finish of the race, there would be more horses back there. So this is pretty optimal for what it's a photograph of. This has the blur in it. I've got a version of this picture that's not as nice without the bus in it. And the bus just gives it this sort of drawing us away from the picture even. So we get this crazy looking building that looks like a ship, but then we also get this motion that makes the picture dynamic and leads us to see other things. Okay, then once again, we see the motion. Okay, I'm gonna stop there and we'll finish this out on angles and stuff on Wednesday. I have given you, I have provided for you, I've got a activity 6, and I want to see the pictures you've chosen, you've decided on, or very close. I'm going to stay away from telling you specifically what picture to choose. I need you to make that choice. I will give you positive, negatives. And another reason I'm showing you this background stuff is I am going to talk this way. I am going to describe pictures this way. So by having knowledge of it, you can understand hopefully what I'm talking about, how the different objects work. So hopefully this will help. I'm going to post this along with the earlier lecture. They're not far different. But I'll have them both there. I'll give you the links for both a little later on. And I am going to definitely before class have a Photoshop tutorial and perhaps, hopefully, an Illustrator tutorial so we can start moving toward work. Remember, we're pushing back. Your poster is going to be due for the draft. Will be a week from Wednesday. You'll present it in class, and then it will ultimately be due the week after that. So everything's pushed forward or pushed back a week. So you have more time to work on this, and I've got some more time to talk about this stuff. Okay, and I'm gonna feedback on your photo ideas on the class activity. So that's where I'm gonna give you my opinions. All right, thanks everybody. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Sir,
Yes,
you didn't change my attendance.
okay, are there things,
What?
do you know that that's the surest way to bother any teacher and aggravate them? How do you know I
Yeah,
did?
I told you earlier, but I wanted to make sure because I actually came to class really early and I was here. I didn't know class started. It took me out because you were in class.
Okay, it's breaking up, but okay, I'm on it right now. Just a second, I have to wait for it to download. Okay, it is changed.
My name is Fatma Muhammad.
Yeah, I saw.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
You too.
Sir, should I stay here or should we talk on a Zoom call?
Okay, yeah, we can, why don't you, let's wait till people go.
Okay.
Doctor, I have a question.